It is time for Elko Live today. Thank you so much, listeners, for taking time out of your day to join us. Our very special guest in studio is our dear friend, Wendy Charlebois from Zero Suicides, Elko County. Wendy, always a pleasure to sit across from you. Thank you for coming today.
Well, thank you for having me. And I was just listening to the lead-in to this, and the man said, talking about critical issues that pertain to rural Nevada, and that I'm here to talk about that, about a critical issue.
Definitely, you are welcome here, and we know that your being here, along with that of your colleagues and your companions and friends in this effort, have all made a difference. And this is one of the topics that we'll never know that we've made a difference unless we have not been successful. And that is the true sadness of suicide, is that we know that we can help by reaching out, by talking about, by elevating, creating awareness about suicide.
Right, and that is exactly what Zero Suicides is all about. We're all about reducing the stigma of suicide. We're about training people to become more observant and better listeners to people who are struggling, and to reach out to other groups that we can collaborate with to help bring the message that there is no suicide is not an option. That's the message that we want to bring, that suicide is not an option and that there is help available.
So today's program, we're going to talk more about that better understanding of suicide, the education and prevention efforts that are underway in our county and community. We will start with some news that is not pleasant because it has to do with the number of suicides that our community has experienced since the beginning of the year. And I'm led to believe, I understand it's 9. You may have the number 6, so it could be between 6 and 9 suicide deaths this year.
Right. And that is tragic for our small community. And I want to make sure that that some of those didn't take place in Elko, the city of Elko, but in Elko County. And that number is just way, it's just unacceptable. And I think that we can do better. And we can do better by I think that when we bring things out in the open, and we can talk about them, and we can elevate the conversation to reach people that we wouldn't ordinarily reach, people in business, people in mining, people in medicine. And if we can do that, I think that we can really help people that are struggling, because many of us, and it's kind of part of the human condition, this is one of the things that we learn about in some of our trainings, is that many of us think about dying and dying by suicide. It crosses our minds, but most of us never act on that. But when you consider that about 20 to 25% of Americans have some type of a mental health disorder. Only about 40% of those individuals get treatment, and that suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States of all people. What good does it do to keep it secret? Because it's happening, and so we have to talk about it. We have to, and like I say, we have to reach out to people that typically we wouldn't necessarily think about reaching out to, like walking into a business and handing them a flyer about suicide prevention, and inviting people to come to our trainings that have nothing to do with the mental health field. Mm-hmm. So I just think that our Zero Suicides, that's what we're all about, is to trying to get that message out.
Wendy Charlebois is our guest today, and among the myths of suicide is that it's a selfish act, but actually it's about ending pain.
Right. I see a lot of memes about suicide because as you know, my own son died by suicide in September of 2018. And one of the things that I saw is that suicide is not a selfish act. The people just couldn't stay anymore. And they couldn't stay anymore because of the pain that they were experiencing. And we know that that people who are thinking about suicide or have a serious mental health disorder, they often feel very alone and isolated, and they don't know what to do. And oftentimes people think, I'm the only one that's thinking like this. This is so bad. And again, if we don't talk about suicide, we're perpetuating that message that what you're experiencing is so bad that we can't talk about it. We're kind of encouraging people to think that way, and we want people to know that there is an alternative and there is help available. So that is a terrible myth.
And it can be as simple as engaging someone, having a conversation. I was at something just the other day or night. It doesn't matter where I was, but the point is that just looking around and observing people that were coming together from all different aspects of life, Wendy, younger people, older people, professionals, retired people. And I thought, wow, this is engagement. This is people coming together for a common interest, supporting one another, casual conversation, but at any time, any one of us could reach out and say, hey, are you doing okay?
Right. And I heard a quote, I heard something, I think it was on TV. I'm sure I'm not going to get it right, but there was a quote that the opposite of depression and suicide is not necessarily treatment, but what it is, the opposite is community. And I don't know where I heard that. I wish I would have written it down, but that is, you're absolutely right. By noticing someone that may be struggling, I know we've all seen it. One of our friends isn't calling anymore, or they don't want to be bothered, reaching out just at that very, very basic level of caring about someone. We can begin to really prevent horrible things from happening. It's not always easy to do that, and it is kind of, I think people are somewhat afraid, but that's where our training kind of comes in, is to be able to do that without so much fear, and to learn a little bit about what to say. Our Safe Talk trainings, our ASIST trainings that are coming up in June and August, and our ASIST trainings are coming up June 11th and 12th from 8:30 to 4:30. It's a 2-day, very intensive training, and we're going to hold that at Nevada Health Centers. And we're having another one in August 6th and 7th, same place, same time, 8:30 to 4:30 at Nevada Health Centers. And you really learn. It's a more intense, it's really an intervention. ASIST stands for Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training. And so it's really an intervention. It's not just, getting someone help. That's what Safe Talk is all about. Safe Talk, we're going to be having some Safe Talk trainings in Carlin. I'm not sure of the dates, but Safe Talk is just being able to notice and to observe and to help, to get someone to the help that they need if they're struggling.
So Safe Talk, which I know I participated in the Safe Talk training, that is such a great resource to increase your confidence and just the simple ability to talk to someone, whether it's a beloved person in your life, someone you've known your whole life that you care and love, or just someone who literally they're having a crisis in a public space, or they're a colleague, or even a casual friend. That gives you just the basic tools to know what to do so that you don't shut down or break down or do the wrong thing, which we all are afraid we're going to do the wrong thing. But doing something will lead to help.
Right. I was a social worker for 32 years, or well, actually more than that. But and I've dealt with a lot of people that have been struggling, a lot of mental illness, a lot of suicidal ideation. But I took the ASIST training when I first started at GBC. In 2006 or 7, I took it, and it was some of the best training that I'd ever had, and it was put on by Misty Allen at the Nevada Office of Suicide Prevention, and it was so intense. It was just really intense. We did role playing, but then right after that, I had a student come to my office, and it was this person had a plan. This person knew what and wanted to tell me. And boy, I was so glad I had that ASIST training under my belt. And I had to get help. I mean, it was a long process. I was in my office with that person for like 3 hours, and I had to get help for myself. I called in reinforcements, and it ended up being a really positive experience.
Mm-hmm. And that is exactly where it started, Wendy, as you said, people realizing that we all need help from time to time, different levels of help, certainly. It might just be a text from your friend who says, hey, I'm just thinking about you. How are you doing? Let's get a cup of coffee. And then suddenly you can talk about what's on your mind. You can feel better, get to that next place, right?
Right. And I think that, people are worried that another myth is that if we talk to someone about suicide, that they're going to do it. Well, they've done a lot of research about that, and that's just not true. It's not easy to talk somebody into something. I mean, if you tried to talk somebody into just going to the doctor because they have a pain in their stomach, and a lot of times they won't go, I don't need to go to the doctor. I don't need to go. We can't talk people into stuff like that. And so, if we ask that question, are you thinking about suicide? Then all of a sudden it's like, wow, maybe I can talk about it. Maybe I can do something different. And so I think that people sometimes are worried that you have to be a therapist or a professional to do something about someone who is thinking about suicide or who is struggling with depression. And that's just not true. Reaching out on that human level of just being your genuine self with that person and saying, I'm worried about you.
Wendy Charlebois is our guest from Zero Suicides, Elko County. Wendy, we had great conversation shortly after something that our community has endured recently, and it was so tragic, and it continues to be so heartbreaking. And we talked with our police chief, Ty Troughton, and our sheriff, Itor Narveza, about the act of violence and whether or not this was premeditated. But our community has endured a murder-suicide, Wendy, and that is also something that even our police chief and our sheriff said, if somebody knew that something was wrong and they would have simply reached out and called, we could have intervened. And they were talking about lethal means.
Right.
Because that's a conversation Elko County doesn't like to have, Wendy, and it has to happen. Guns cannot be in the hands of people who shouldn't have them. That has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. It has everything to do with being a responsible citizen and responsible gun owner. We can all do that as a community. Responsible gun owners can be the ones who say, hey, I don't think so-and-so's doing so well. Let's check on him or her and see if we can hang on to their cool gun collection for a while until they're feeling better.
Right. And
that's as easy as that.
I know that occurred right next door to where I was having physical therapy.
Oh,
and it was just, that was such a horrible thing. And one of the questions that we ask, we want to be aware of when we're talking to someone who is struggling, we want to ask them, do you have a plan? You learn about that in ASIST, and one of the things we want to know about is, do you have any lethal means? Do you have any guns in the house? Or do you have, if somebody says, well, I've got enough medication stashed to where, or some other illegal drug that I can just do it and I'll just go to sleep. Mm-hmm. We want to get that stuff.
Right.
We want to get the guns. We want to get, and I don't mean anything about the Second Amendment. We want to get their guns, and we want to help keep them safe. That's the bottom line. And it doesn't mean, the guns are going to be kept away forever.
No.
But at that time, we have to make sure that they are safe. And when we have booths set up at different functions, we have, in the past, we've been able to give out trigger locks. We have talked about removing lethal means for people who are really struggling. And I mean, that's something we just have to do. And I really, really want people to not get involved in all of the rhetoric about the Second Amendment when we're talking about people who are hurting and struggling. That is not okay. It doesn't serve that person. It doesn't serve that person well to get all caught up in that. And so,
or their family.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I think that Ty and Itor are exactly right. If somebody would have done something, I don't know all of the details about it, but if somebody would have done something, talked to somebody, if they would have called somebody, maybe something like that could have been prevented.
We'll never know
right.
at this point.
Exactly.
So know, anybody listening to this program, that if you are in that situation, you are concerned about a loved one or even a colleague, you can make a call, and it can be handled professionally and with dignity and care. No one's going to come and kick down the door and
right.
start ripping guns off the wall. That's just
right.
not how this happens.
Exactly.
So, right.
And we know that, we also know that mental health treatment works. I mean, I watched The View this morning, and I don't usually watch that, but there was this guy on there that I wanted to listen to. His name is, I can't think of who it was, his name. He's a radio show host, and he's got a big following, and anyway, he goes by something to God, and I can't think of his, anyway. And he's got this huge following, and he was talking about his own mental health journey. And he said, I wouldn't be doing what I am today if I hadn't gotten therapy. And we know there's lots of evidence to indicate that mental health treatment works, and not just mental health treatment, but substance abuse treatment has come a long ways, and we know that substance abuse and suicide go hand in hand. We know that there are medications that can really help with cravings, and I'm certainly not an expert on that, except for through personal experience with my own son. Those kinds of medications are available now, and we have to make sure that we find providers that can help with that kind of thing. And
in fact, there is a care team.
Yeah.
In Nevada. I know that that's on your website for Zero Suicides. It is a state-sponsored resource for rural Nevadans that will connect you to a mental health professional immediately. And we do have those resources now. I know for years we talked about not, but we have mental health professionals who can stabilize mental health symptoms from grief, loss, depression, and anxiety.
Right. And we have a 988 number now, and, if you call from a 775, and this is throughout the state of Nevada, and throughout the United States, rather, and you call that number and you have a 775 area code, they will connect you up with resources and help you connect you up with resources in Nevada. And if you have a non 775, as a lot of us do, if you have a non 775 number, you might get a different call center, but they can get you connected up with the right people. And there's also a veterans crisis line, and we have a mobile crisis response team for youth 18 and under. We have more providers now than we've had in a long, long time. We have clinical social workers. We have a clinical psychologist that's in practice now. We have substance abuse counselors, and we can, and we have also our mental health clinic here. That's a state-funded mental health clinic. So we
CCBHC.
Yeah,
right, yes,
yeah, and we have. We have lots of resources that people don't know about.
And the hospital's developing their third floor again into a behavioral health.
That's right. I'm so happy about that. That is that's one of the things that Zero Suicides has really been pushing, and I think it's going to happen by the end of probably at the beginning of next year, where people who come in with mental health issues can get stabilized right here in Elko without having to go out of town. And we've got to. I hope that the community really supports that. I really, really do. Because that's something we've needed for a long time. So, if you're struggling, you can go online and just Google Zero Suicides Elko County. You'll find so many resources. It'll just blow your mind. And we are always available to talk to. I don't mind giving out my phone number. Lynette Vega, the founder of Zero Suicides, she uses her cell phone number. And so we're available to talk to, and we get messages a lot on our Facebook page, like, I don't know where to take my son. He's doing this or doing that, and we can help. We can tell you where to go.
Zero Suicides, Elko County. Wendy Charlebois is our guest today. And these are all opportunities within our community. We have the Safe Talk training, the ASIST training. That's for people who maybe aren't as comfortable talking about this, maybe people who have had experiences with loved ones or even colleagues. There's something known as Vibrant. Did you want to talk about that too, about how to talk about mental health?
Yeah, this is just a sheet that actually Lynette sent this to me, and it's how to talk. It's the way we talk about mental health and suicide prevention matters. I used to do this thing when I taught Psych 101, when we talked about stigma and how people with mental health issues are fearful about coming forward because of the stigma. And I used to ask the question, how many words do you know that identify mental health or mental health disorders? I mean, what words do we use in our society?
Like
for
crazy.
People? Crazy.
Right.
Wacko. Cuckoo. He's a lunatic, or he's out of his mind. And, those are all really, really ugly. And I know we all do it, because I use that term cuckoo. I don't know. I got that from my sister. But anyway, it's really ugly to identify people in those terms.
And it could be just a temporary state, obviously. Right. It's like, I'm feeling crazy today. Right. I don't know what it is. And,
hysterical. That's an old one that is used with women mostly. But anyway, but this is...
that's where the word hysterectomy comes from.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And because that's what they used to do for women who did not behave. And, there are so many, ugly stories about how mental health was treated in the 1800s and the 1700s, and what they used to do to people. I mean, it's horrible. But anyway, we want to make sure that we look for the positives with people. We want to make sure that we don't like a lot of people use the term committed suicide. And that is, we don't really feel, this group especially talks about that referring to someone that committed suicide is has a bad connotation because it's like they committed a crime, and the term committed sounds like we're going to commit you to a hospital. So we use the term died by suicide or killed themselves, and also talking about referring to people with those terms that I just mentioned, because mental health disorders are very complex, and there's not just one thing that causes a mental health disorder. There's not, and suicide is even more complex because we often don't know why. I mean, that's a question I have asked myself a lot, and Jan Basier used to say, "You'll keep asking why until you don't have to anymore." And that's exactly, and it's almost 6 years, and it's so complex. It's not just one thing that causes a person to take their own life. It could be personal, but it also could be cultural. What our culture says to people, if they're not valued, if they're discriminated against, if they're told that they're not worthy, and as a culture, we send that message to lots of groups of people, right? And so we have to really be very careful about how we talk to people about their struggles.
It all comes back to that pain, the idea that someone is simply in pain and they're trying to end the pain. They don't want to hurt the ones they love, the people that they know love them. And again, you'll learn different strategies through the group Zero Suicides Elko County to help someone who struggles, and to help get them treatment too for a mental illness. Or if you're listening and you're saying, I am struggling and I'm not feeling confident that I'll get through this, to talk to a professional and someone who does have some answers. And I know, Wendy, that when you're not a professional person, if you can have a conversation and remind people about the things that there are to look forward to. When Haley DeGrieve came out, and I love that young woman. She really transformed the way that I can talk to young people now about suicide, because that was the scariest thing for me, is to think, how do you talk to someone who has their whole life in front of them, but is seriously considering ending all those possibilities.
Right.
And Haley would remind me, you just tell them that you just talk to them about the people they've never met, the loved ones that are waiting here for them that they've yet to meet. And you can talk to them about their pets, because sometimes I'm sorry, Wendy, it's what we need to do to keep people with us for at least one more day, Right.
And, talking to youth about suicide is it's a big challenge. And we know that, you hear it on the radio, you hear it on television, you read it in the newspaper about the challenges that our youth are having, and that we're seeing more and more kids with anxiety disorders, depression, and even worse, and that are really contemplating. I think like 50% of students have disclosed that they have thought about suicide at one time or another. And that is really scary. So how do we reach them before they even think even harder about it? I think the school district is really making some inroads about that, about doing a better job of talking to students about suicide. I think, I think the hospital, which is opening their third floor, I think they're working towards making things better for people who come in there, because that's really the last stop for people who are seriously having a mental health crisis and are considering suicide. So we just want to be human. That's the bottom line. We really want to be human. And I'm reading this great book. I don't know. It's called The Five Invitations. If anybody wants to read it, it's written by a Buddhist. He's a Buddhist. He's not a monk or anything, but he worked in a hospice in San Francisco during the AIDS crisis. It was the first Zen hospice in the United States. And I mean, he talks about how important life is. And I've learned a lot about just being able to reach somebody on a human level. Because, I mean, that's what this author, that's what it's all about, is just being human with other people instead of, because, we have a lot of division right now in our country, and so we just have to be human.
That's right. And that division is by design. Other humans who wish us ill, who wish us to destruct.
Yep.
This isn't science. I mean, this is what's coming as a result of people. So being human, engaging one another, this kindness thing that we talk about a lot. Being a good parent means spending some time and trying to understand. I'm glad you mentioned the school district. Parentguidance.org is an amazing online resource.
Yes.
It's free. It's confidential.
I took a little, they had a seminar that I listened to, or web Zoom thing.
Yeah.
And I listened to that, and it was really pretty good.
And they're all archived. Mm-hmm. So you can go back and access the material. You can get specific information from our community, from our area. And as you mentioned, the hospital, Vitality Unlimited, I know they have ongoing services. There are any number of agencies and organizations. Zero Suicides, Elko County is a great umbrella for all this.
And I want to mention, before we finish,
Yes.
I want to mention that we had a big fundraiser on April 27th, and it was our first one, and it was called Bikinis and Babes, and it had the theme was all about starfish, the starfish story. If you just look it up, you can. It's a good story, and so. We had an auction, we had a band, we had food, and when we first right before the night, I was kind of worried because we hadn't sold that many tickets, but we packed the place, and it was so much fun. We had a little bit of education about suicide prevention, and the money that we raised. And I know you had Stormy Remington on your show. It was to help with to help families who had a suicide that needed a serious cleanup after the suicide, and the money that we raised is set aside for that. And I want to thank Nevada Health Centers. They were one of our sponsors, Nevada Gold Mines, and the Elko Federal Credit Union. All of those people helped make that possible. And I also want to thank the public for coming and bidding so much money on things that are crazy. And people were so generous. Elko is a generous community. I have to say, I was crying by the end of the evening. It was just a beautiful thing. And then, so that's gonna be every year, and next year's gonna be better. So it was wonderful. Really wonderful.
Wendy, thanks so much for sharing that beautiful story. Again, I knew the gala would be successful. And again, many, many thanks to all the sponsors and the people who support it. We'll look forward to the very next Zero Suicides Elko County Gala. And super cool.
Yeah.
Well, we covered a lot of ground. Thank you for coming. And if we could just reach one person that's struggling, just one person, that would be fantastic.
I have to say, after the gala, we had a lot of helpers, young helpers from the high school, and two of them, as they were going home with their parents, said, I really didn't want to come to this thing, but I know a lot more about suicide. And when I saw those people talk about what happened to their kids, because we all gave a little spiel about why we were involved in this, two of these kids said, I want to help out more. This really opened my eyes. Now, if we can do that with two young men, I mean, come on. as adults, we can open ourselves up for that.
Yep, we can do anything if we've got their support. Wendy, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, lots of love to you and everybody at Zero Suicides. And thank you, listeners, for joining us for the program today. Zero Suicides, Elko County, 988 if you or someone you care for, whether you're in crisis or you just need information. And then also look up those ASIST and Safe Talk trainings that are coming your way soon. Thank you for listening to Elko Live today.